Greetings, this is Paulthepoke from Paulthepoke.com. Today's topic, I am the bread of life. That's a quote from Jesus. And we get that from John 6, verse 48, I am the bread of life. So just as a little introduction, yeast is a leavening agent. And in the Bible, leaven is equated with sin. The Hebrew word for leaven is chametz, and this word means sour or bitter. And this is what sin does to people. It makes them sour or bitter. And sin causes people to ferment or swell. Individuals see themselves as larger than what they actually are. So that is pride and prideful. So it's the sin in our life leads us to becoming prideful. And then, once we have a prideful attitude, we're more apt to sin, and it becomes a nasty cycle upon itself. And sin and pride increase, and they just keep feeding on each other. So that's the idea behind the word chametz and the outcome of it. Now, bread without yeast is matzah, and the term matzah means sweetness without sourness. Matzah, the sweet taste of bread without sin. Now, in the New Testament, the Greek word for leaven is zume, and this is the same concept that's noted in the Hebrew language of the Old Testament. I got a definition from Help's Word Studies, and it states, leaven is generally a symbol of the spreading nature of evil. So, again, matzah, we don't want zume, we don't want chametz, we want matzah. And we're going to talk about matzah, especially with the spring feasts and Passover and unleavened bread, first fruits coming up, probably starting next week. And we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 5, verses 7 and 8. This is the Apostle Paul talking about Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the body. He is the body without sin. He is sincerity and truth. Clean out the old leaven so that you may be a new lump, just as you are, in fact, unleavened. For Christ, our Passover, also has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the feast, and that's the spring feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. And there's the comparison. Unleavened bread, matzah, sincerity and truth, sweetness. And then you have leaven, malice, wickedness, evil, sin, puffiness, pride. There they are. They're compared by the Apostle Paul. And to put it another way, Jesus Christ is the prophetic matzah that Isaiah spoke of. Like the matzah, Jesus was striped, flogged, and scourged before he went to the cross. And so I've got a picture of some matzah, and it's broken. But if you look at a piece of matzah, it's got little holes poked in it. It's been striped, it's been burned, it's been scourged. That's the idea. So Christ's head was pierced with a crown of thorns. His feet and hands were nailed to the cross, again pierced. And a spear was thrust into his side to assure his death. So when you look at Isaiah 53, verse 5, but he was pierced, you can see the examples of how he was pierced for our transgressions. Had a crown of thorns, nails, hands, feet, spear, pierced for our transgression. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. And so the whole process leading up to the cross, the scourging, the flogging, the whipping, what was it, with like a flagrum? It's like a whip with little nails or pieces of glass tied into it, so it like strips and tears flesh when it hit it. That's kind of the idea. I mean, it's very graphic, but that is what happened to Jesus. And then also when you look at a Passover Seder, like the broken bread, the afikomen, the bread or the body of Jesus Christ was broken for us. So just look at Isaiah 53, verse 5 alone. There are 4 examples of what Jesus, did for us. 1, pierced for our transgressions. 2, crushed for our iniquities. 3, chastisement that brought us peace. 4, his wounds we are healed. I mean, so anybody wants to say he didn't do it for us, I mean, he is the one who is the source of our redemption. I mean, he paid the price, and he is the substitution. And this was written 700 years. Isaiah was written 700 years before the suffering servant would emerge on the scene. And that, I mean, and everybody reads that, 700 years, Isaiah. I mean, you think about 700 years from now is like the year 2700. You think any of this blog sticking around 700 years from now? I doubt it. But yet Isaiah wrote something 700 years before a Messiah, Jesus, would come onto the scene. And here we are 2,000 years after Jesus, and we're still talking about it. I mean, that's 2,700 years. That prophecy, that book, his scroll, Isaiah, still stands, still relevant. It's fulfilled prophecy and history. And there's more coming. But, you know, for this sake, and this particular post, we're just going to talk about just the concept of Jesus as broken matzah and how that was observed in Isaiah 53, and the idea that he is a substitutionary sacrifice. He died for us. And then, you know, it's more than just Isaiah 53 verse 5. Well, just look at all these throughout the chapter of Isaiah 53. We're going to go through each one of these. Isaiah 53 verse 4, part A, surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Again, he did it. He bore it. He carried. Verse 6, part B, but the Lord has caused the iniquity or sin of us all to fall on him. Again, he took our sin. 8, part B, and as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living for the transgression of my people. So again, he took the place for the transgression of my people. That'd be Israel as far as Isaiah is concerned. Chapter 10, verse A, or part A, chapter 53, verse 10, part A. But the Lord was pleased, the Father was pleased to crush him, putting him to grief, if he, Jesus, the Messiah, would render himself as a guilt offering. Again, he is the guilt offering on behalf of the people. Verse 11, part B, by his knowledge, the righteous one, my servant, will justify the many, as he, the Messiah, Jesus, will bear their iniquities or sin. So again, substitutionary, the Messiah, taking the place of the sinner, the iniquities. And lastly, verse 12, part B, because he poured out himself to death and was numbered with the transgressors or sinners, yet he himself bore the sin of many. So he took sin on for many and interceded on their behalf for the transgressors. So anybody who wants to say, oh, where's the idea of a substitutionary sacrificial Messiah? I mean, my Lord, just look at Isaiah chapter 53. I mean, there's 4 examples in verse 5, and then every single verse, with the exception of 9, provides. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more verses where, okay, it's pretty clear there's a guy coming. He's going to die, take the place of sinners. And that's in one chapter of the scroll of Isaiah. And because of the broken body, the broken bread, his body, the bread, the broken bread, is the symbol of Christ. Believers in him are redeemed. And we'll close with Galatians 3, verse 13. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who is hanged on a tree. Again, the idea of being pierced to a tree. So if you are interested in looking at the idea of matzah, I've got a couple of links from some older posts. I think it's been 4 or 5 years since I'd written about matzah. I thought it was time again. Take a look at matzah from the standpoint as the broken bread, the broken body of Jesus himself. Click on these links: unleavened bread, matzah, unleavened bread, broken and hidden matzah. Get into some of the customs of a Jewish Passover Seder. And this can be found in categories under gospel, prophecy, and spring feasts. So if you scroll down here under these categories on the far right-hand column, click on gospel, you can find it, as well as other links and articles about the gospel. And then also, the spring feasts start next weekend. Click on those, and we have articles posted on the spring feasts. And they're prophetic. Jesus fulfilled them, every single one of them, from his death, burial, and resurrection. So, Passover lamb, the death, the slain of the Passover lamb. We covered matzah and the symbolism of the body being buried, being hidden in the Passover Seder. He's the unleavened bread. And lastly, he's the first fruits. He's the resurrection of the spring feasts. So Jesus fulfilled every single one of those, to the day, to the minute, to the hour. Shameless plug for my book, The Gospel 33 AD. It's unbelievable how that stuff is broken down with the verses of the law fulfilled by Jesus himself, literally to the minute. Good stuff. And if you can walk away from that and not think that Jesus is not God, I don't know what to tell you. Pretty amazing stuff. There's only one. I mean, he's it. He's the real deal. So appreciate you guys following along. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to share with others at Paulthepoke.com. Also, this can be followed. Type in your email address, hit subscribe here in the gray box. You'll receive notification every time we put something out. And, with Spring Feast coming up, probably going to have an uptick in current events news. And may have some more posts. I know we got some things going on that I'll be posting on later this evening. Probably have another post up tonight in regards to the Turkish lira. See how trading opens up here in about 15 minutes or so. So that will be coming out as well. Appreciate you guys following along. Hope you have a great evening. Take care. Bye.